Hey everybody, I'm Adam Grubb, your host of the Iowa State Fair podcast, and our first guest, CEO and manager, Gary Slater. Well, here we are. It's the first official Iowa State Fair podcast, and it's only fitting that we have the CEO and manager, Gary Slater. Gary, thanks for coming out.
Thank you. This is exciting.
Nice. Yeah, it's kind of a new way to sort of communicate the fun of the fair, right?
Well, it is, and so many young people are listening to podcasts. My girls drive up from where they live, and they say, "Dad, I listened to 3 podcasts on the way up here," and you know, so I think this is how to get our word out, and exciting things happening at the Iowa State Fair this year.
Yeah. So manager, I understand CEO. I know president, vice president, like in that realm, but it's interesting that the fair, you're the manager. What's the role of the manager? Why is it called the manager?
Yeah, I think county fairs, especially for years, and there's thousands of county fairs throughout the United States. The manager was just the person. A lot of times, the only paid person on the fairgrounds was the one person, and they called that person the manager. I think about 15 years ago, our foundation kind of came into their own, and as we're asking for large donations and as we're asking for larger sponsorship dollars, the foundation came to me and said, "Let's call you the CEO because that translates better to large companies and things like that." Because as you just said, what does the manager do? Well, same as the CEO, same as the president, I guess, of some companies or whatever. Basically, it's all responsible for that. And I report to the Iowa State Fair Board, and then all the employees report to me.
How many employees are there that actually work for the Iowa State Fair?
Full-time employees, we have 72. That includes 4 from the foundation. But during the fair, we'll be upwards to about 1,600 total fair people in part-time roles to make the fair happen.
Are there volunteers, or is it part-time role, full-time, or does the fair have volunteers? How does that work?
The fair couldn't function if we didn't have volunteers, and we have some wonderful, dedicated volunteers from all throughout Iowa that come in. Probably the most prominent are 4-H and FFA moms and dads and county leaders that come from all walks across Iowa to help with the livestock shows, to help with the 4-H building exhibits. And then after that, have many types. Our foundation alone has upwards to 350 to 400 volunteers, all helping with everything from the corn dog kickoff to, which happened a few weeks ago, to selling water, selling merchandise for the betterment, capital improvements, the Iowa State Fairgrounds, as well as we have information volunteers, and we have our Little Hands on the Farm program that requires about 100 volunteers a day to make it go. And so if you count 11 days, that's 1,100 volunteers right there. We're fortunate that a lot of companies will just volunteer a day. So we don't have to get in touch with 1,100 individuals. 11 companies take care of that.
Yeah. Well, that struck a chord with me. How, if I wanted to volunteer, how do I go about becoming a volunteer?
You can start with our website and look at that. We do have a volunteer page on the website that tells you how to get in touch with the Iowa State Fair Blue Ribbon Foundation. Tells you how to get in touch with the State Fair information volunteers, as well as in our agriculture education page. It tells you how to volunteer for Little Hands on the Farm or vet camp or some of those other activities that we have.
The Little Hands on a Farm has, without a question, become my favorite thing in the fair. I'm a new dad. I got 3 kids under the age of 4, and I'm excited for my girls to get to go this year. The they're 2 years old, so this year they'll be about 2.5. And I look forward to them going. My son, when he turned 2 and now he's 4, he loved it. There's so many exciting things about just family things that are at the fair that now as a new dad I'm coming across, and I really love, and I want to get into that. But with all the volunteers that you have, I mean, what is like a day in the life of Gary Slater actually at the fair?
Oh my gosh. Well, the good thing is it changes every day, good or bad, I guess, with that. But my day starts early. I have breakfast with my board of directors, 7 a.m. every day of the fair, and kind of go through what happened yesterday and what's going to happen today, where I need them to be or be seen, or to see something new that we need to evaluate as to whether it continues or the success of something with that. Then we go on to staff meeting with my key staff. And there again, we talk about what happened yesterday and what's upcoming today, and especially what's upcoming tomorrow in case we need to ready areas for that. We talk about weather forecast as well, and how things are going there. Pretty much just situational, organizational type meeting. From there, jump into the day, and usually I have. Sometimes I get a little crabby by the end of the fair if I get caught in my office more than I'm able to get out and about, because I love the fair and I don't want to miss it. So I try to sneak away out of my office every chance I get and just see all of those things that make the Iowa State Fair the best. I mean, you really can't come to the Iowa State Fair and take in it all in a day's time, and that's kind of why I crab a little bit when I don't get out of my office, because I know you're just missing a lot when you're not out there seeing and doing it and being it.
Right. I love every year there's always something new, right? And it can be sort of like a sidewalk project, or the revamp at the Midway, or the new stage in the grandstand. There's some of these bigger things, but what are some of the new things? I know there's been a lot of construction out there. What are some of the big new things that are coming to the fair in 2019?
Well, certainly, as a fairgoer comes in the gate, 50% of them want to see the same exact thing they saw last year. They go to the same corn dog stand that they go to every year, and their route never changes. But then the other 50% are saying, been there, done that, show me something, wow me new this year. And for that, we say we never let a program go, but we add programs every year just to satisfy everybody. And we have a little bit of new construction this year. Gate 13 coming out of the north parking lot, the northwest end of the parking lot. If you got to the fair early, parked in the north lot, you came through gate 13. If you got to the fair later on and we were already parking in the northeast part, you probably don't even know gate 13 existed, but it was a plywood shack that is now just like the gate we refinished 2 years ago, gate 15, right by the Midway. It's just west of the grandstand. And so we're finishing up that, readying that area for an outdoor entertainment center to be built in 2 years. That's where we'll have tractor pull, rodeo, other types of motorsports, whether it be demo derby or monster truck, some things like that. That's 2 years away. Other projects this year included, as you said, sidewalk repair, road repair, and different things. New programs this year, we're excited. I'd say that we're featuring daytime entertainment this year. We've always had 4 stages. We've had the Mid-America stage up on the hill. We had the Susan Knapp Amphitheater, and we had the Bill Riley stage, and we've had the Bud Light stage in the past. 3 of those stages are permanent. The Bud Light stage was temporary. As you look at nighttime entertainment, we had 5 different professional bands going on the fairgrounds every night. 1 on each stage, and of course 1 in the grandstand. So every night we've had one of those free stages that wasn't quite full, or maybe didn't have a crowd at all. It kind of varied as to where that was. So we got to thinking that maybe we had one too many free stages. And so the portable stage, which was the Bud Light stage, went away this year, and we've added to that daytime entertainment, and we've had mutton busting one day a year in the pavilion in the past. We've hired a company called Tommy G Productions out of Colorado, and they're going to put on mutton busting 5 times a day, every day in that spot where the Bud Light stage was, 6 times on the weekend. So we're adding daytime free entertainment for your kids to ride those sheep across the they dress them up just like a PRCA cowboy or professional bull rider does. They put a helmet on them. They put a flak jack on them. They get them in the bucking chutes, and they open the gate, and boom, across the way they go. They're scored, and the top scorers of the week will come back and compete on the last day of the fair. Every kid gets a ribbon, and on the final day, the top kids will get trophies. So it'll be a lot of fun. But along with that, we have other free entertainment. Kachunga, the alligator wrestler, will be back. Interesting question when I was giving a Rotary speech last week was, what happens if the alligator actually wins that match? I said, well, he won't, for one thing, but his Kachunga's brother will just take over. I think his arms are as big as my legs anyway, so he can handle it. And then, of course, the Sea Lion Splash. 10 years ago, we've had the Sea Lion Splash. It's a sea lion show. Wonderful show. We've tried to get it back for 10 years, and finally they became available for our dates, and we're excited about that because it's one of the most popular shows we've ever had free on the Iowa State Fairgrounds. A couple other things new this year. We have in the livestock area Friesian horses. They're kind of the majestic black. They're almost like Percherons, but a little bit more majestic, a little bit more higher arched neck to them. We'll be back. Hereford pigs.
What's a Hereford pig?
Pigs that are red and white, like a Hereford cow would be. Not too many of them around, but they've made a comeback in Iowa. And then American blue cattle, you may have remembered them as Belgian blue cattle. They're double-muscled, kind of a bluish type coat hair to them, making their way back to our livestock shows. You know, really, you mentioned ag education earlier. Ag education is what separates the Iowa State Fair from being just another theme park, really. Right. And we celebrate that because there are so many of our urban cousins, and I guess I would qualify with that too. I was raised on a farm, but now I live in Des Moines, that are raising kids and grandkids that are once and twice removed from the farm. I think it's important that we fill that role in making sure that our next generation understand the struggles and how hard it is to feed the world, which Iowa farmers do, as well as where our own food and fiber come from, and that's exciting.
Is that in the Susan Knapp building that has, you can see the chickens and the cows, and it has air conditioning?
It does. The Animal Learning Center.
Yeah, we love that.
You can see baby cows, baby calves being born, baby goats, kids being born, as well as baby pigs. We have eggs hatching there with turkeys and chicks going on. We've had aquaculture in the past, showcasing just all of those things. We have our own veterinarians on staff to make sure that those animals are super taken care of and answer your questions. And that's also the building where we give our The Way We Live Award, which is an award given by the Iowa State Fair to those farm families throughout Iowa, and I think 6 farm families get that award this year that exemplify what it's like to be a good farm neighbor, to be a farm family that contributes to their community, and they're voted on by their peers in that community and nominated to come to us. Just exciting. When you think of the ag industry in Iowa, really drives the state. I think it's our largest industry, and we celebrate it every year at the Iowa State Fair.
Yeah, I love it. Let's talk favorites.
Absolutely.
All right. Do you have an all-time favorite concert that you've been to at the Iowa State Fair?
Well, of course, I'm older than you, so one of my favorite concerts a few years ago, James Taylor was at the Iowa State Fair, and I truly enjoyed that. But some of the country favorites of mine, Kenny Chesney, Keith Urban, Toby Keith coming this year, as well as Luke Bryan. Last year, Thomas Rhett was a huge, wonderful show.
I was blown away. I went to that show and I was blown away with just the energy. The energy with the new grandstand is incredible. I mean, I really, really love the new energy. But Thomas Rhett was really good. Is there a show you haven't seen that you like missed, or was long before even you that you missed?
Oh gosh, of course I'm an old guy, so I'd love to see George Strait come back to the Iowa State Fair grandstand. He was probably there 10 years in a row. Garth Brooks the same way, and now they're maybe they're both toward the end of their careers, but they have to have bigger arenas than what we have to offer, even with our expansion to 16,000 seats.
Yeah, well, you never know, right? You never know with Garth.
One of the 19 years ago, my first year as being manager and CEO of the Iowa State Fair, we had Bob Dylan. And that was a huge show that night, a big sellout night, and a great show, and one that I think sets us apart when you can get somebody with that magnitude of stardom on your grandstand.
Right. So I don't have a Facebook page or anything like advocating for this, but what is the likelihood that we get the train crash back?
You know, that's so funny because up in the new museum that we have up on the hill, we have a actual footage of one of the train crashes, and the announcer says, and only 2 or 3 people were slightly injured in that, and I just think, oh gosh, I don't think that we'll ever be able to do that from a safety standpoint today, but. Wasn't that fun? That was pioneered at the Iowa State Fair, and other fairs across the country did that as well, just for a few years.
So it was my understanding in like the 30s or 40s, that's what they did. There was a guy that like drove a car into a house that blew up, and then we'd get like 70, 80,000 people. I mean, is it true that the train crash is like one of the all-time most attended events at the fair?
It certainly was, or is, and has been one of the most biggest attendance. Our grandstand was set up for horse racing, and so it's very, very wide. It holds about 10,000 people, and so you could set it up for those types of shows where you were looking kind of at the whole area in front of the grandstand, not just one small stage, as we do maybe more today. They also had airplanes that would fly around our track and have a race around the track. And some of them barnstormed a little bit and ran into that barn and blew up as well. And the guy lived. Probably one of the biggest shows from years ago was the Joey Chitwood automobile show, where they would go on 2 wheels and jumps and different ones. Joey Chitwood probably performed at more fairs, both state and county fairs across America, as any show that I know of.
I love it. I mean, that is the one thing I've really gotten into and started to enjoy, is going up to the old museum, or going to the museum and seeing the history. When a friend of mine, Peter County, and I were talking, I mean, we were putting into context the Iowa State Fair is pre-Civil War. It's pre-Abraham Lincoln. And so how long rural Iowa and urban Iowa have been coming together to celebrate the state as a whole at the Iowa State Fair has been going on pre-Civil War. And that just blew me away. And so it is kind of fun to see some of the things that they would do at the fair and how the fair continues to evolve. It's certainly exciting to see. Probably one of everybody's favorites is the food. Do you have a favorite food? Where do you go? If you had one final meal at the Iowa State Fair, what is it?
Well, for me, my history is growing up on a farm raising hogs and working for the National Pork Producers Council 25 years ago as general manager of World Pork Expo, I have to say pork chop on a stick is and always will be my favorite food. And I guess if that was a final meal, I think that'd be a pretty good one as well.
That's it. I am a big pork chop on a stick guy, and I've really come to like the new tacos, the turkey tacos. Thought those are really good, like the G-Mig wraps. I mean, some of the new food is fun. I know they've deviated a little bit. There's plenty of stuff on a stick, but it is kind of fun to try some of the new foods, and certainly keeping up with it on Facebook or in the register about all the different new foods and stuff. It's fun. But then to your point, you get to go back to Old Faithful.
You do, but it's fun to try the new ones. So we'll have over 50 new foods at the Iowa State Fair this year offered. Of course, we just had our food contest, and out of 8 finalists, we selected 3 that will be a People's Choice at the Iowa State Fair this year. So we'll see. You can find those on our website or on our app. I would urge everyone to download our app because it really makes going to the fair easy. That you can find food. We have a food finder portion of that app. We have a schedule portion of that app and a map. What else more do you need to go to the Iowa State Fair? Just take your smartphone and make sure you download the app.
So the dates are the 8th through the 18th of August, obviously. Last question. I don't want to get ahead of 2019, but when for you does work on 2020 start? I mean, is it like you win the Super Bowl and the next day you celebrate and then you're back to the next year? Like, do you take a break in there, or when do you guys start getting ready for 2020?
You know, from probably a planning standpoint, we started 6 months ago with next year's fair. We really we're starting to we're going to completely renovate the 4-H building between this year's fair and next year's fair.
Yeah,
and so bids went out about the 1st of June. They came back in the 1st of July. Those contracts are now being awarded to start immediately after this year's fair. From a grandstand standpoint, 20 years ago, we used to, about December, we started thinking about our grandstand shows. We've already have offers in for all 11 nights for 2020. We don't have confirmations, but we have offers in for that. So everything is kind of sped up and doing it quicker. We are also thinking as soon as this year's fair is over, we're going to convert our webpage to a brand new style, but you will see the 2020 theme in September this year for next. So we're kind of right into the planning of it. Implementation won't start, of course, until later, but the planning you've got to be on top of it.
I remember that's really surprising that it is that far ahead, but then when you say it and you explain it, it makes perfect sense. And I remember, I think it was last year, the comedy act for this year got announced during the fair last year. So, I mean, is that a potential that more acts start getting announced a year in advance for the fair?
I think so. If you look at all the concerts across the United States, I think they're announcing them sooner, a lot of times 6 and 8 months ahead of time. And you know, this past year, our first announced show, or our first show that went on sale was Slipknot, and we did that on Halloween because of their involvement with Des Moines and some of the haunted houses here. Corey Taylor came back and did a promo for this show coming out, and it's probably a reason that it sold out in 2 weeks. When we went on sale, it's been our biggest show. It will be our biggest show ever at the Iowa State Fair. That's
incredible. Well, we have survived our first podcast together. It was pretty painless. Yeah,
absolutely. I enjoy it. Just like talking across a coffee table or breakfast table in the morning.
I like it. Let's do this again during the fair.
Absolutely.
If we can sneak in a time, catch up, see how things are going, start talking about, how the fair is going, maybe mid-fair, and then we can kind of do a catch up on how things are getting ready and lining up for 2020. But Gary Slater, CEO, manager of the fair, we really appreciate you coming on the Iowa State Fair podcast.
Well, thank you very much. I've enjoyed it, and everyone, make sure that you buy your tickets in advance for the Iowa State Fair. Save $4 a head, and there are great deals on our midway packages as well for kids old and young.
Dates again?
August 8th through 18.
Love it. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.